So my tech dem project, so first of all, in some ways it didn't have a happy ending. However, I can't actually tell you how valuable I found the experience. And anyone I talk to, I say, you've got to do a tech dem because you may not get what you thought you were going to get out of it, but you're probably going to get something really great. So that's, I guess, and that story for me is around this evaluation piece. So I was really glad that Julie asked me to come and speak about this specifically. My story is that I have post-grad project management students. They primarily study online and asynchronously. I have a few students who come to intensive sessions, but there's not that many of them who do that in terms of the overall cohort. So most of them are studying purely online. And one of the things, despite kind of the numerous things we've tried with this cohort, you know, cues in study forums about contentious practice issues, all manner of various things to try and get them to interact with one another, they didn't want to do it. And also, we didn't find that they even posted a lot of information in the forums for me to address as an educator. So there's not a lot of talking going on those study desk forums. So that bothered me as someone who has kind of quite a constructivist kind of view of what education is about. And so tech dems was a great way for me to say, okay, well, maybe it's a technology thing. And maybe if I just use something a little bit more sassier, that might build the students' engagement more to come and do that. So I tried 4 different things. 2 of them were directly targeting, I guess you could call that social presence type piece, particularly where I wanted the students to engage with one another and with me. And the other 2 was essentially just some different ways for them to have cognitive engagement or to engage directly with material. So I used Adobe Spark for more that teaching presence type piece. So that's a kind of one-way mini videos. And I cannot speak highly enough about this as a technology from my perspective. And the students also reported that they really liked this, but it didn't actually help them talk to one another because it's a one-way kind of video medium. So that was great from my perspective, though, as a tool to develop videos really, really quickly. And then these ones were normally only say a minute or 2 minutes or something like that. So great from that kind of chunking perspective. The next one here was I did use a Padlet. So this was one of the ones that was designed around trying to get the students to talk to one another. And more so because, you know, the literature tells us those postgrad students, what they're really interested in is their assignments. So, you know, I've tried to get them talking about their assignments on this Padlet. Zilch, zippity, nothing. They would not do it. Now, it's interesting when I looked at this and the data, and I'll talk about how we evaluated this, but we get them to do quite authentic assignments about their workplace, even though I told them on here not to say what your company name is. You can use an alias, you know, tweak the details. No. And some of them said, I'm not talking about my organization in public, right? It's essentially that's the message that came through. So there's kind of this conundrum between a piece of assessment that the students love because it helps them make changes in their workplace, but when they don't know the other people on the end of the study desk, are they willing to kind of share about their experience, even if it is in a de-identified way? So that didn't work. VoiceThread I also used, and again I linked this to the assignments because I thought, okay, it's got to be about the assignments, you know, if you want them to engage. I had a couple of students engage in this, but I don't know that I can really count it because there were students that I asked to test that it was working because I was really surprised that no one chose to engage with this. So that didn't work for me, even though it was, again, linked to the assignments and the students having a conversation about essentially sample assignment paragraphs and whether they would meet the expectation. The 4th thing that I did was I upped the use of my H5Ps. These were popular, in fact, so the students liked engaging with these, but again, there's kind of an anonymity here that they quite liked in terms of they got that feedback on how they were going, whether they should start, you know, in the next module or so on, but they weren't doing it in front of their peers. So how did I kind of analyze these 4 particular interventions? And this is why, even though I guess 2 of those 4 didn't end up getting me what I wanted to out of tech demos, the evaluation process that I went through, I feel I have a far more evidence-based understanding now of that cohort and what they want, and I can then feed that into the teaching practice within the program. So let me just bring this up because I think this is useful. Are you seeing this? Yeah. Okay, so this is just a little table that I did when I was starting the Tech Dems. So there was a particular intervention that I have here. So I showed you what those interventions were down just before in terms of and why I was using them. And then kind of the thing that I was attempting to change, so kind of very much in that action research model, like Mel was just talking about, the dependent variables that I was trying to target with these independent variables, if we want to talk in that action research language. And then I had measures of how I would know whether this thing had particularly moved. So I used a combination essentially of existing things within the study desk, some manual manipulation of existing things, or that I actually had to somehow think about perhaps there was issues with the integrity of the data from the study desk reports and play with that. And then I also did a survey at the end. So how I ended up combining all of this together was I used the study desk analytics to tell me what the behaviors were. But what I found really useful was the survey that I ran at the end of the semester was about trying to find out from the students why they behaved in those particular ways. So I was asking them questions about their preferences, about why they did or didn't engage. And that information has been really useful for me in better understanding that cohort. So whilst they may not have used those interactive tools the way I wanted them to, the fact that I feel like I now have a far better understanding of what they do want, I think has made the process enormously valuable for me. So I can't speak highly enough about the framework that Tech Dems can give you to really do some evidence-based practice in your classroom.